In this episode, you'll discover why trying to push through or deal with trauma often makes it more resistant, why this experience can feel even more intense and difficult for highly sensitive people, and what actually allows trauma to begin to heal when it's approached in a completely different way. This is an edition of Strategy Fridays, where we think about specific things you can do to help manage stress as a highly sensitive person. In this episode, you'll discover why trying to push through or deal with trauma often makes it more resistant, why this experience can feel even more intense and difficult for highly sensitive people, and what actually allows trauma to begin to heal when it's approached in a completely different way. This is an edition of Strategy Fridays, where we think about specific things you can do to help manage stress as a highly sensitive person. When people start trying to heal trauma, there's often an assumption that makes things harder, that it's something you can deal with or work through or resolve or get past. And on the surface, this sounds like it makes sense. But trauma doesn't behave like a problem that you can solve. It doesn't respond to pressure. It doesn't respond to timelines. It doesn't respond to being told it's time to move on. In a way, trauma has a mind of its own. You might even notice yourself trying different approaches, thinking about it more, trying to understand it from different angles, trying to push yourself through it, and none of it quite lands. It can start to feel like you're doing something wrong or that you're missing something. You might notice this. Part of you wants to move forward, and another part of you doesn't. And the more you try to push that part, the more it resists, or it shuts down, or it becomes more intense. It's a bit like trying to force a child to come out of hiding. The more pressure you apply, the less willing that child becomes. Except here, it's not just a small part that is resisting. It's often something big inside. And so trying to control it or manage it or force it to resolve usually backfires. And that can be confusing because it starts to feel like, why can't I just get through this? And this can feel even more challenging if you're a highly sensitive person, because everything in this process tends to feel stronger for highly sensitive people. The emotions are more intense, the reactions go deeper, the experience takes up more space in your system. So when something unresolved is there, it doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It can feel overwhelming. At the same time, highly sensitive people often have a mind that wants to understand things, to make sense of them, to find clarity, and to resolve what is unresolved. So there's a natural pull to try to work it out, to figure out what to do, and to move it along. And those two things together create a kind of tension, a kind of strong emotional intensity. And when that intensity is paired with this mind that wants to get everything settled, then it can start to feel like, I need to deal with this. I need to get to the bottom of this. I need this to go away. But the more that pressure builds, the harder it becomes for anything to actually move. Because the system doesn't respond to pressure by opening, it responds by protecting itself. And that protection can look like staying stuck, even when part of you wants to move forward. But it's possible to approach this differently. Instead of trying to move the experience along, you can meet it where it is. You can get down on its level like you would with a child that doesn't feel safe. You don't force the child to speak. You don't rush it. You don't try to correct it. You stay with it. You listen. You allow it to show you what's there. And something important begins to happen when that's the approach. The experience starts to feel safe enough to reveal itself. Because safety is what allows healing. And without that, the system stays guarded. It stays closed. It stays in protection. But when there's no pressure and no judgment and no demand for it to change, then there's space. And that space is often what has been missing. Not effort, not trying harder, but space for the experience to actually be seen and felt. And in that space, you can begin to notice, what is this actually about? What does this part of me believe? What is it trying to protect? And this is where inner work becomes very natural. Not as something you apply to fix the experience, but as a way of gently exploring it, questioning what's being held, seeing what's true, letting the system move at its own pace. And for highly sensitive people, this matters even more, because your system responds very strongly to pressure. Anyone who is an HSP will resist pressure and will hunker down and go into protection mode when it is applied, either from outside or from ourselves. So tough love tends to not work for us, tends to create more resistance for us. What allows things to open is something different. Patience, respect, a sense of being met exactly where you are. And when that's there, healing isn't something you force. It's something that begins to unfold very naturally. In this video, we looked at why trying to push through or deal with trauma often makes it more resistant. And that is because any kind of pressure or pushing or force is going to make the hurt part go into protection mode and kind of hunker down. And now it becomes much harder to actually work with the trauma. You know, they say in education, the first step of education is gaining the trust of the students, getting their buy-in that they want to work with you. When that's there, you can do anything. But if that's not there, then you can't do anything. We also looked at why this experience can feel even more intense and difficult for highly sensitive people. And that is because in addition to the hurt part of us, the part that got traumatized, that is hunkering down and protecting itself and resistant, as highly sensitive people, our nature already is to be a little protective of our sensitivity. And so as a result, we also are not necessarily open to outside direction. And as a result, any kind of forcing or pushing from outside, or even from ourselves, kind of intellectual pushing, can end up backfiring. And then finally, we looked at what actually allows trauma to begin to heal when it's approached in a completely different way. And that is to get down on the level of the child and to listen to it and to speak with it and to hear what's going on for it, even if it's speaking irrational garbage in a way. That is part of gaining the trust of that little hurt one. And when that trust is gained, then it can begin to explore in a way that can actually help it find its way out of that stuck position. So the feeling I'm left with today is that trauma is like an emotional child. It doesn't respond to reason or force of any kind. It has to be the one who does the inner work. Anything from above will only backfire.